Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 3, part 3 of the July webinar series from Woodburn Accountants and Advisors about getting ahead of the growth opportunity in China. We are formulating this webinar series because we are seeing great growth opportunities in a variety of industries and sectors in China, specific to foreign invested brands that are looking to get in. One of the biggest mistakes foreign investors make when going into the market is rushing. They rush so fast that they don't create a solid foundation for their business in China. And in the end of the day, instead of being able to focus on the growth and being able to pivot and make decisions, they are looking backwards and trying to fix a lot of the administrative and compliance issues that surround having a business in China. So we're going to get cracking on day 3. Again, there are a couple of people that are on right now. If you would be so kind as to let me know who you are. Are you a newbie to China? Are you a startup in China? Are you an experienced China hand? That always gives me great insight into your background. Just from a technical standpoint and how this webinar works. I teach, I educate. The topic for today is all about how to start your business in China with your accountant. And so I'll be giving you tips, tools, ideas on why accountants in China are so vital and why you need to find the right one for your organization. There is no dumb question when it comes to China. So if I'm not clear on something or you need more clarity or transparency, please use the questions section of the control panel and type away. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, and I will be there to answer all of your questions. From a technical standpoint, we are using Zoom meeting. So if anything happens from your end, please just remember to log off, log back in. Hopefully that will work. If not, just know we're recording today's session, and so it'll be up on the YouTube channel hopefully by the end of today. If something happens to me from a technical standpoint, it does take between 1 to 2 minutes for my system to reboot, and then I'll be coming back on to finish today's presentation. If time permits, please stay on and wait for me. If not, just know that we are recording, and so it will be up on the YouTube channel, like I said, at the end. The China expert for the week is myself. Unfortunately, we have no guest speakers this week. Just to give you a bit of background about who I am, my name is Christina Kohler-Colucci. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I'm a leading expert on inbound investment into China. What that means is that I have 17 years of experience of only helping foreign investors get into the Hong Kong and Chinese market. What we do is we help clients with all of the compliance procedures in relation to the entities that they set up in both Hong Kong and China. So that means we implement those structures, we manage those structures, and we administer those structures, and we advise on those structures. We've helped over 500 companies with their pre-investment advisory, their implementation, and ultimately their growth in the market. We are also the creator of a variety of different methodologies, five of which we are highlighting in this series this week, all about creating system processes and efficiencies to build that sound foundation that you do need when going into the Chinese market. And if you are interested, last year I did write a book, The 9 Superpowers to Succeed in China, which has all the tools and tips at your disposal to have an action plan to create your own journey in China and to make sure that you are eliminating the most common obstacles and roadblocks that pop up in most foreign investors' journey. We want to learn from those that were established 20, 25 odd years ago, 17 odd years ago. And so I created this book to provide you with that insight on how to do things better than we did in the past, basically. You can find the book on Amazon, both in Kindle as well as in hard copy versions. So let's get started on part 3, which is how to start your business with your China accountant. Now, let me start off with what are the pain points that foreign investors incur when collaborating with Chinese accountants. One, there's a lack of transparency, meaning that you get a P&L and nobody gives you any answers to your questions. Nobody answers your questions. Many times you get these reports in Chinese, not even with an English version. You can't even read them. You don't understand them. There's a lack of understanding and language capabilities, and then there's a lack of communication. This is a renowned fact in China, a lot with the outsourced profession, but also with the in-house profession, in that accountants in general are the least sociable group of individuals within a company, right? They're not the outgoing type. They're not the proactive type. They're not the ones who are going to be the go-getters in an organization. They're usually sitting at their desks day in, day out, and are very reactive. They follow system processes and they don't necessarily think outside the box. This is common not only in China, but in almost every jurisdiction around the world. So it is very important as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a managing director, as a general manager, to be the proactive one and to instigate communication with the accounting team, whether it's an outsourced provider or whether it's an in-house team. I am trying to change the profession in China to teach my own team about being more proactive, about being the ones to communicate, to ask for meetings, to raise their hands when they see a red flag, and to do it immediately, and not just to wait for feedback, but to say, we need to speak now. We need to change things now before we lead into mistakes. Number 4 is about spending more money on less quality compared to our own home jurisdiction's finance team. So in many instances, there are comparisons being made between the finance teams at home and the level of, sorry, I have my daughter at home. One moment, everybody. Here you go. Here you go. Thank you. Apologies for that. A lot of people compare the standard of quality of their own finance team in their home jurisdiction and feel like they're spending more money on their finance team, but getting less quality out of those individuals. You can't compare. Also because language is a barrier, right? You can speak to your finance team in your home jurisdiction in your own mother tongue. If there is no language barrier, because you have the ability to speak Chinese, then there is a misunderstanding or no knowledge level based on the accounting standards following the Chinese GAAP system. So it's very, very difficult to really make a pure comparison between spending more money in China, getting less quality, or, you know, compared to your home jurisdiction. That is something that I wish companies would avoid doing. It's just, there is no apples to apples comparison there. The standards and the skill set needed are quite different in many instances. But these are the pain points, all right? Now, what I want you to analyze, and many entrepreneurs, they don't feel like the finance team brings value. But before we start today's presentation, I would like you to analyze how much value do you place in your finance team? From a ranking between 1 to 10, what is the value level? Now, I can tell you from my own personal experience, when people come into the Chinese market, they place minimum value on their finance team. And how do I know that? Because they go with the cheapest CPA firms where you pay less than 2,000 RMB a month, where they don't speak English. You get reports, if you're lucky, because sometimes they even forget to email those to you, and you know nothing about the finance. All you know is that you get your bank statements and you look at your bank balance, and that's what you know. You don't know if they're booking things correctly. You don't know if your tax declarations are being done well. You have no clarity or transparency. And I joke you not, that is what a good majority of companies and entrepreneurs do when they go into China. That's the value that they place, is that they want to spend 2,000 RMB a month on an accountant. When they don't realize the value and what an accountant or a finance team should be doing for you in the Chinese market. And it riles me up because for me, my head of finance is my right-hand person. It's my wingman. Actually, she's a woman. It's my wing woman. All right. She is the one who guides me. We are a partnership, a team about how to drive our business forward. If I did not have her, I would not have the transparency and clarity to make decisions. If I did not have her being proactive with me to say, hey, listen, we got to do this, we got to do that, or you know what, one of our accountants is not performing well, we got to fire them, or whatever the case is, I would not be where we are today. And I would not have the time to be able to do marketing initiatives and educate people, which I really enjoy doing, like doing today. So how do you place value on your finance team? And how much value do you place on your finance team? If I were to look at your China budget today, how much would you be allocating to your finance team, who are ultimately your wing team? You can't live without them. So I want to start off, before going into skill sets and how to do that, how to start your business with that account. I want you to understand what a Chinese accountant should be doing for you at the various stages of growth in China, okay? This is what they should be doing with you right from the beginning. And this is probably what you should be then putting as a job responsibility list when you're starting off in China. So, startup process. You are implementing your company in China, okay? Well, your accountant should be determining the best business structure for your situation. Your Chinese accountant, somebody who knows the Chinese financial system very, very well. Not somebody who's had 2 years of experience, somebody who has had considerable experience. My right-wing woman has had over 25 years of experience. All right. And I invest in that. Okay. Because obviously the salary level is going to be higher than just 2,000 renminbi, but that's what I've invested in. Okay. Lawyers have the ability to also determine the best business structure for your situation, but they do not always take the business structure that they are advising on and link that with the accounting and tax optimization that has to be created. So when you are looking at the best business structure for you, you've got to tie in the legalities together with the tax optimization to really create that best business structure. Your right-wing person who's in the finance industry should be assisting with the financial analysis for your business plan. They should be validating it. And by business plan, that means business plan plus budget, right? That's how I word that term. It's looking at the strategy together with the budget, right? And doing that financial analysis. They should be providing advice on the accounting software that you may need. You need to get that advice from somebody who knows the Chinese accounting software systems, what is easy to implement, efficient to implement, and what is easy to then grow with. They should be providing advice and assistance on opening a business bank account and helping you to operate that bank account. Again, most law firms don't include bank account openings in their scope of service. So you'll have to use somebody to help you, especially if you're not on the ground. Who are you going to use? It should be somebody who is in the financial sector, who knows the types of accounts you have to set up and can give you transparency and clarity about how to use those bank accounts. You want to make sure that your accounting procedures comply with government regulations and requirements. Again, you are going to be following the Chinese GAAP standards, which is different from Western GAAP standards or IFRS. Okay, so they need to create for you accounting guidelines, procedures, operational guidelines, system processes, however you want to call it, so that you are complying with government regulations and requirements. Part of that accounting procedure is providing advice on how to track expenses during your daily business activities. We have had one client last year where we kept pushing them to the operational guideline was created, but to execute that operational guideline with their team members. And what happened was they didn't do it. And in October 2020, we suddenly got a pile of fapiaos from one individual that was backtracked to January 2020 that had to be booked in. And it was a reimbursement of close to 200,000 renminbi. First of all, the company didn't have the cash resources to make that reimbursement. So we had to create a budget to pay that back. And then you are not calculating the expenses of that individual based on the projects he's performing. How can you track the revenue against the costs? You can't when you suddenly get the fapiaos in October. And yes, we got angry with the client because it has to be executed by top management. Accountants, again, are the ones that are reactive, and nobody wants to listen to us, especially from interdepartments like sales, sourcing, purchasing department, sales department, warehousing department, whomever. They don't like us. We're the enemy. So it has to come from top management that the execution occurs. Once they push for that execution, it becomes a habit. But somebody has to execute, and it has to be executed in the startup process. And most importantly, if you are an entrepreneur that's establishing the business in China, you have to know that you should separate personal expenses from business expenses to be able to track over time the success of the company. Because at some point, those personal expenses will be taken out. And then it's very difficult to compare really apples to apples the success. And what we want to do in the financial department is make that analysis year on year to track growth. So it's important to, again, have an accounting procedure, operational guideline about separating the personal and business expenses. That's all that has to happen in the startup process. Then your accountant, whomever, has to handle the regular business operations. And this is what your accountant should be doing on a daily basis. This is part of their job, all right? It's helping ensure that the independent contractors are classified as independent contractors and not employees. In addition, you need to speak with your contractors, which are your suppliers, about VAT issues, getting the VAT invoicing correct, making sure, again, there is a standard procedure in place with them from a finance perspective that is clear and transparent. Something that I haven't added in here is that the same should be happening with customers, helping ensure that your customers have system processes and operational guidelines regarding the finance aspects. We have recently had a situation with a client in China that is finally starting to transact locally. They have their first customer that they want to transact with, and the local GM is clueless about the information that is required from the customer in relation to VAT and VAT data, VAT information. We had to issue 3 VAT invoices, 2 of which had to be canceled because we were not given the right information from the local GM. In the end, we became the main contact to the finance department of the customer. And from going on, that is going to be the operational procedure. You need this accountant to issue VAT sales invoices, follow up on the receipt of VAT sales invoices from the suppliers' contractors, calculate the VAT payables each month. We want to make sure that we can track revenue with the cost of goods and services. To be able to do that, we need to get those VAT invoices issued out and received on time. That's the duty of your finance department, to do that type of follow-up. Should not be the job of sales team. It should not be the job of the purchasing team. It has to be the job of the finance team. You need your finance person to explain your financial statements so you can understand the ins and outs of your business. If you yourself as a leader, manager, managing director are sitting aimlessly on your chair, getting an email from them with the attachments of trial balance, cash flow statement, P&L, balance sheet, you open it up and you don't understand anything, then you set up a meeting and you discuss it. And it should be happening monthly. And I've given you at the end of today, we're going to look at how to formulate that with your accountant. But that's what you should be doing on a monthly basis. In your first 6 months, you might be having 1 to 2 hour meetings to go through those financial statements. But I guarantee you, at some point, those meetings will last at most 30 minutes because everything is clear to you. And you can even read those financial statements without having to ask anything to your finance team, your outsourced provider, because you've had that training for 6 months. Consider it as training. Your finance person should be overseeing company payroll and payment processes, which means payroll calculations, social insurance, housing fund, individual income tax. So although there's the annual individual income tax declarations, you still have to do a progressive accumulation IIT declaration each month, okay? They should be handling all of that. And you might say, oh, well, no, that's an HR person's job. It can be. Well, I mean, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone and hire only 1 person to do that work. And generally speaking, finance people, they know how to do payroll stuff, okay? They should be doing on a daily basis tax planning, providing advice on estimated upcoming tax payments so that you have enough cash sitting in your bank account to declare those, or having a system in place where you can accrue certain expenses so you can lower your quarterly tax thresholds. This is all the advice that should be coming from your finance person. And it should be communicated to you so you are aware, because in the first year, you cannot give all of that responsibility to your finance person to make those decisions. It's a partnership. It's a team. You should be making those decisions with them. When they give you the advice, you question it and you decide how to move forward. They should be closing out the books on the monthly basis, because if you're a general VAT taxpayer, you will have to declare VAT monthly. You should be closing your financial reporting management reports on a quarterly basis for your quarterly profits tax filings. And you should be closing your financial reporting, your year-end management reports at the end of the year, in January of the following year. Okay, but again, you should be reading those financial statements proactively. And obviously, the other rule on a month-to-month basis is complying, submitting your taxes of the company, the financial reports, and all the necessary paperwork to the tax bureau. I have also not mentioned here the communication. They should be communicating with your bank, your tax bureau, government offices, contractors. For me, it's the finance people by the contractors, finance people at the customers. They may have to also make sure that inventory, if you've got inventory on the ground, is compliant. So they will be in touch with the warehouse to get reports from the warehouse management system. They will be also doing meetings with your departmental heads to make sure that things like expenses and paperwork are all up to date. Weekly meetings with sales, with purchasing, potentially with supply chain, logistics, okay, and maybe marketing, depends on how big your team is. They will be coordinating those meetings with those department heads. If there's no communication, another big pain point, because again, this is not instigated by the leader. If the finance finance person is not communicating with those interdepartment heads, there's no communication. Finance is lost. Again, these are reactive people sitting at their desk, twiddling their thumbs until somebody calls them. Okay? And most of the time, they are the enemy. Nobody wants to talk to finance because finance will say, hey, you're overspending here. Why are you overspending? That's also another job, financial controlling. The list goes on, guys, in terms of the regular business operations. Okay, I've just compiled here a short list, but financial controlling is a huge aspect, which is why they become the enemy. Which is also why sometimes the leaders don't want to talk to them, because the leaders want to be the decision makers about instigating projects, but you've got to talk to your finance about it. Have you got the cash to instigate those projects in your startup phase? Again, I'm hoping that just with these 2 slides, you can see the value that a finance person can bring to your organization. The next is business growth stage, which is the stage that we love in terms of guiding our clients currently. All right. So what does a finance person do? And growth stage particularly happens if you've got finance people in-house. Can also happen when you're outsourcing, but there has to be a very good foundation there. But generally it will happen when you have somebody in-house, because they will be doing these interdepartmental meetings with sales. They will be seeing the business on a day-to-day basis. And as such, they will be able to help determine areas for growth by providing insight on cash flow, inventory, pricing, business financing, etc. Right? But you have to realize they can only provide that insight if there's communication with the other departments. They can provide advice on property, equipment, leasing, and purchasing. They are there ultimately to help you prevent getting audited by the Chinese Tax Bureau, because they are in charge of creating system processes, operational guidelines to make sure your company is transparent so that you don't get any raised suspicions from the Tax Bureau. But if there are raised suspicions, which by the way happened to me, they will help you to prepare for and guide you through that audit, to the point where when we went through it ourselves, and it was a positive audit, it was because our revenue was so high and the Tax Bureau didn't understand why our revenues were so high. It was lovely. I actually only had to sit through 1 meeting. The work was done by my finance team, and I had the ability to know that things were going to get done and that they were going to do it well. So I sat through 1 meeting, smooth as a breeze, didn't waste my time on it. They will help to create financial forecasts so you can make better decisions in your business. Creating scenarios is critical. During COVID 2020, we had to pivot many of our clients' budgets so that they would get reforecasted. And in the end, we were doing these reforecasts for some clients on a month-to-month basis to see how they were going to survive the year. When there is a crisis like a pandemic or any form of obstacle that may arise, your accountant needs to react quickly and change and reforecast the financial aspects of the business so you can make better decisions, so you know how to react very quickly, whether that's cutting headcount, changing suppliers, moving offices so you cut rent, whatever it might be. Okay? They need to work with you to create the business budget, right? Like I said earlier, as part of the startup process, they are there to do the financial work, financial analysis work on your business plan and budget. But they will continuously work with you to look at your business budget and will support you on your business goals. In fact, one thing that I have learned is that when you are looking at your business plan and a budget, you need to include all your departmental heads who have greater insight as you as a leader, because you have an overview of everything, but they have the insight, the nitty-gritty details about what is happening in the business. You've got to involve them so that you can make much better business goals. And then everybody is aligned on those business goals, and you create a team environment that actually can be very exciting. And even more exciting is that you involve the finance team in that so they don't become the enemy. And then ultimately, something that again has become more and more frequent, popular, is a trend, is they can provide advice and resources to assist if you are looking to sell your company, if you're looking to gain new investors into your organization, if you want to merge with another company, they will have that ability to assist you. Now, all of you may be thinking, oh, well, to find somebody like that in China is like, it's like a needle in a haystack. Where are we going to find these people? Trust me, there are more out there than you can imagine. It just means that you are investing in a salary budget that is higher than 2,000 renminbi a month. In fact, much higher. For me, again, I will reiterate it. Finance team, they are my right wing, not sales, not anybody else in my marketing or no, they dictate my decisions. And a lot of people, when they're starting off in China, their mindset is, we need to push sales. We need to push the business first before investing in finance. Why do you have that mindset? If anything, then lower your marketing spend and invest in a sales guy and a finance person. But both have to come hand in hand, because they're looking to make sure you survive. How do you know that this guy is good enough to create the sales? All right. I am passionate about this because, again, what should a Chinese accountant do for your business in China? For you as a leader, entrepreneur, general manager, is number one, save time and energy, and ultimately your sanity, which is what they've done for me. Because I have transparency over my numbers. In fact, I get weekly core numbers that I know on a weekly basis what's up in my company. Yes, does it mean more work for the finance team? Absolutely. But it means that for me, I save less time and energy because I can't make decisions quick enough. I don't wait necessarily till the month's end. I have the ability to make real-time decisions versus fixing things. I've done that. I've done that in my past life when I first arrived in China. I spent my first 5 to 6 years fixing things in the organization versus thinking and focusing on growth and making real-time decisions that affect the impact of my organization. We need to do that from day one. And number 3 is we've got a plan for the future. We need to know where we are going. We need to make sure we're going in the right direction. And your accountant should be guiding you on that. They are the wayfarer on your boat. They are making sure you're hitting that destination. And anytime that there is a storm, a wave, whatever, they are the ones that are going to help you to pivot the direction, that you save time, and you move forward still. Okay. A big pain point for many people investing in China is that you move one step forward, there's a roadblock, and you move 2 steps back. Then you move another step forward, and again a roadblock, and you move 3 steps back. That happened to me in my first 5-6 years. And all I can say is now, after 17 years of experience, I haven't found my finance team of more value to me than ever before. And obviously I say that coming out of a pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic, that was my reality. All right. So it is vital. This is what they should be doing for you. This is the objective that you want to hit with your accountant. And again, they are out there, whether it's an outsourced provider or whether it's hiring somebody in-house, they are there. So if there's one takeaway that I want people to get from this session is invest in an excellent accountant. And again, I've written accountant. You choose what title you want to choose. I don't mind. But you need to make that investment. Now, how to qualify accountants in China. Okay, so this is the skill set you should be looking for in your accountants. One is up-to-date tax knowledge. Okay, I remember talking with a friend of mine who had his own company in Shanghai. And he said to me, oh, Christina, could I, if you don't mind, could we have a lunch together? Because I've got questions about VAT that I'm not sure about. We had lunch and we were starting to talk about VAT. And he's like, wow, in 20 minutes, you've explained something to me so clearly. I get it. I know what to do next. And I said, well, you've got an in-house accountant. She should be providing you with that information. I said, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, you know, she's so junior. I'm like, well, why do you have a junior person? Why are you not investing in an accountant who can, you've spent now 2 weeks on this VAT issue that I solved in 20 minutes. And I'm a foreigner in China. So my knowledge level is nowhere close to my finance teams. Okay, I just want to emphasize that. But why aren't you investing in somebody that 2 weeks ago could have explained this to you in 20 minutes so that you wouldn't have lost 2 weeks of this business transaction? You need people who have this up-to-date tax knowledge. So you've got to look at the industry and sector you're in, and you've got to analyze what is critical. So are you a company that is doing 100% of export? Well, then you need an accountant that has extreme knowledge on VAT refund applications, on customs regulations, so that they can tie everything in when you're doing the export from China. Are you selling into the Chinese market? And are you importing? Well, then you need to have an accountant that has knowledge about importing of products. Not necessarily do they need to have full information about customs, but they should know what paperwork is required from customs, how the VAT is calculated, how customs is calculated, how the goods are going to be stored, if at all, and then obviously the sales on and the VAT onwards. They need to have this up-to-date tax knowledge, which, mind you, every single accountant in China has to go to an annual training session in order to get updated. So if they don't have that tax knowledge, which you can easily test in an interview, then you know that they are just simply not as qualified as you need them to be. You need somebody who has a good business acumen, meaning that they have been involved in interdepartmental discussions, they have been involved in headquarter discussions, and they have a good sound base about business, not just finance. Because you need an accountant who is also going to be flexible with you to have vision over an opportunity versus just being a financial controller and saying, you know, no, you can't do that. They have to have a certain level of business acumen to realize when opportunities pop up that you can't say no to those opportunities, and they will figure out ways that we can grasp at those opportunities with the cash we've got on hand. Okay? You need somebody who has a presentation prowess, and what I mean by that is that they have the ability to orally explain and present data. They don't have that ability, and you can do that easily again in an interview process. Take a fake P&L from China and you say, explain it to me. What do you see when you read that? I'll give you 10 minutes to view it. What do you see when you read that? Do you see problems? Do you see issues? Do you have questions? And they have to come out and present it. It's a fantastic way of analyzing that. They need technical abilities. By technical abilities, I mean that they should be able to easily is maybe not the right word. They should be able to adapt easily to technological systems, whether that is using SAP, NetSuite, Megi, KingD, Ufida, any of the accounting software systems, any of the ERP systems. Do not hire a 55-year-old accountant who does not have that technical ability. Also, when it comes to technical abilities, you are the decider of the software systems you use. You, because you are permanent in the organization. Your accountants and your employees are not necessarily permanent. So although you're getting advice from them, you are the ultimate decider. And why do I say this? I say this because you will find a lot of accountants who are like, oh, please just use KingD. We know KingD. We know how to use that software system. We've used it for 50 years. We know it, we know it, we know it. But if KingD is not the right software system for your organization, why are you purchasing it because your accountant said so? No, you go with a software system that fits your organization, whether that means implementing SAP, whether that means implementing NetSuite, whether that means implementing a cloud-based system that's easy to use like Meggy. You know, maybe King D is the right one, but you've got to go through that analysis. You've got to know what exists out there. You also got to know what your budget is to pay for these ERP systems or these CRMs or accounting software systems. And you've got to have an accountant who is flexible enough to adapt and to learn. And again, that's sometimes a little bit tricky because many accountants are reactive, not proactive. They have to have a certain emotional intelligence, meaning that they have to have the courage to say no. They have to have the courage to react quickly. They have to be able to communicate with the various departments. They have to be able to have that emotional intelligence to be able to do that work. All right. Again, something you can test very easily in an interview. They should have internal auditing capabilities. And what I mean by that is that it is very important to create system processes and operational guidelines in your organization with every department that you're creating. And it should be done from day one. And your finance team should be the ones auditing those operational systems and operational guidelines and adapting them to make sure that your company remains efficient as you grow. Changes will have to occur in those system processes over time as you grow. That's a given. But you need somebody to lead that. And whether you do it on a quarterly basis, biannual basis, that internal auditing capability has to be there from your in-house team or your outsourced provider. They need to have management and leadership strength. And I say that because, again, you know, are they prepared to be the bad guys? Accountants generally are the bad guys. We are the enemies because we say no. We should be saying no. Okay, they need to have that strength. They also need to be proactive about gaining new skills, learning new skill sets. And they have to have good to excellent levels of communication. And again, you got to test that out through the interviews. Now, what are the steps to start your business with your Chinese accountant or with your China accountant? And I've listed here, I forget how many there are. I think there are about 13, 14 steps. And I like to go through each one because this is basically how to set up your sound financial system, the foundation of your financial system from day one of the company being implemented. So number one is you got to create a budget for the China business and set KPI targets. Whether those KPI targets are monthly, quarterly, or annually, I would do, in your startup phase, I would not do it annually. I would make them shorter, so monthly or quarterly. But you need to create a general budget for your China business and set those KPI targets. Ideally, you want to do that with your China accountant. Obviously, if if you haven't hired that person or you're not using an outsourced provider that has finance capabilities, then that might be a bit tricky to organize right from the beginning. But that should be an aim for you, is that you get that validated and set up so that the minute that you are ready to launch and kick off with your Chinese company, those are set. The next is choosing an accounting software system. So like I said, it's understanding what software systems are available, what's your budget for that accounting software system, whether you want to adapt. So start off with something that's maybe cheap, flexible, so that you can then grow into an ERP system at a later stage. But you need to choose an accounting software system. And what I want people to realize is that there is more than just one. There are many. And you have to find the accounting software system that fits your company and your budget. Okay? So as an example, what we do as a principle in terms of our advisory is we tell the clients what exists on the market. Yufida, Yongyo, King D, Meggy, then we've got NetSuite, we've got SAP, and then you've got all these other types of accounting software systems available. What we want is an accounting software system that is obviously grounded under PRC GAAP regulations so that you can create the necessary financial management reports, and that ideally it's linked with the VAT tax system and your bank. Now, for most of my startups, I would recommend going ahead with Meggy, which is a cloud-based software system where you pay a minimal amount every single month for unlimited users. The English and Chinese versions are beautifully synced. and you have connections to the VAT system, the tax system, and the bank. As you grow, and if you then develop branches or you expand within Asia, I would then recommend moving on to a software like NetSuite, where it has great capabilities in China, but also in the South Asian region, in the Asian region. And again, does not burn the bank. So I would recommend a phased approach. Everybody can also use King D and whatnot. I just feel that King D doesn't cater to expansion. And ideally you want to use one accounting software system, maybe even just for Asia. What you do need to see is if you're using an accounting software system in your home jurisdiction and you want to use that in China, whether it's adaptable. So you have to investigate that. Okay. Then you've got to implement and provide training for that software system. Okay. Regardless of whether the user has had 20 years of experience, I would always recommend training to have a refresher on what is new about the system, because there's always new developments occurring with these accounting software systems, always updates being generated. And if you have started using a software system 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you get complacent. You stick with what you know, which is why I say you've got to be open and proactive to learning new skill sets. So getting training, again, is always good. But you've got to implement the software system and get that training. And I recommend with certain systems to get the whole team trained on it so they're aware of how the software system works. You then have to create your charts of accounts for China. We have a standard charts of accounts we provide to clients, and then we expand on that depending on how detailed the clients want their charts of accounts to be. That basically means, if you're not familiar with this lingo, is that if you've got revenue, instead of having just one line item which says revenue, you can have, 50 line items broken down. Your revenue is broken down into 50 line items, which might be product A, product B, product C, product D, because you want to do an analytical work. And again, this is where your finance person comes into play and says, listen, we want to analyze from day one. So let's make a detailed chart of accounts. The next step is analyzing. Do you need one set of books or do you need two sets of books? And what do I mean by that? I mean, in China, you have to produce your financial management reports according to PRC GAAP regulations, which for me means you are doing fa piao accounting, which means that in many instances, your revenue might not match your cost, which means that when you look at those financial management reports, they may not reflect what is today. So you may want to create two sets of books where you've got the standard Chinese version, where you produce the Chinese financial management reports. They're issued to the tax bureaus. But for your Western comprehension, you'll have a second set of books, which is for the accrual accounting, where you then have up-to-date current information where you can make decisions. Or you have one set of books and you make very clear guidelines that everything has to match, and that the accountant has to be aware of how to accrue accordingly to tax regulations. Okay, so you need to have an accountant who has that experience about knowing how to accrue within the fa piao accounting system. You need to obtain weekly, and again, this is my suggestion about what to do when you're setting up your business with your Chinese accountant. This can all be changed eventually. This is what I would recommend initially. You want to obtain weekly from your accountant, weekly bank information, which means bank balance, payables, receivables, and any overseas incoming payments. I haven't added here overseas outgoing payments because usually at the beginning, you're not sending anything abroad. You're focusing on what's coming in and what's going out locally, right? I get this information weekly, still today. And it gives me, again, a level of transparency every week. So I know what my bank balance is every Friday. I know what my payables have been that week, my receivables that week. and I know what overseas incoming payments have come in. And if it's very rare that we have overseas outgoing payments, but if there are, it's input into the weekly report. Point 7, set up a meeting or call immediately if you feel that something seems strange to you in that report, i.e., has a payment been made that you haven't approved? Were you made unaware of a receivable and you don't know where that receivable has come from because there's no clear explanation in the report? Or looking at the bank balance, the cash is running low. Do you still have enough registered capital to fund the organization? Or do you need to figure out a way of injecting capital? If you've received overseas incoming payments, does your finance person have the right documentation to be able to release those payments from the escrow account into your bank account? You need to be able to look at those reports timely, make an effort to do that, and call immediately, or at least, for me, I do it on the Monday because we have set up meeting calls that are permanent in the calendar, where if I do have any doubts, I raise them right there and then, which means that I react quickly. Me, the leader. I don't rely on my finance team to tell me. So you've got to open up those reports as soon as you get them and react quickly to them. Set up those meetings, make it a recurring meeting in your diary that you look at them. First of all, it will force you to look at them, but that if you have any doubts, you discuss it straight away. You then need to set a deadline for your finance team about when you want to receive the financial management reports. So is that the 8th of every month, the 10th of every month, the 12th of every month, the 15th of every month? When do you need to receive those financial management reports? And then again, recurring calendar meeting to review those reports line item by line item, reviewing the budget against the actuals, and reviewing whether targets are achievable and whether the KPIs are going to be met. Again, 7 and 9 about setting up a meeting. Those should be recurring meetings that are put in the diary, that are just, they're there. You don't make any excuses. You don't miss them. They are critical, vital. And like I said, in the first 6 months, these meetings may last an hour or 2 hours because you're literally going line item by line item. And if you set up your charts of accounts as a detailed charts of accounts, there's going to be lots of line items to go through, especially if you're doing the budget against the actual. And don't forget, this meeting will all lead into reforecasting and amending the budgets, which will then be reviewed once again. It's a flow, guys. It's a flow that has to happen. Then you are creating so once you've reforecasted and you're looking at those reforecast budgets again, you've got to create in those meetings as well. So as part of the agenda for those meetings, I guess, would be these 3 points. It's creating an action plan of next steps to improve efficiencies, handle cost controlling. You want to discuss problem points, communication points, interdepartmental issues. You need to raise that and say, hey, finance, are there problems? Tell me. If there are, we need to fix them now. What are they? Are they communication issues? Are they interdepartmental issues? What are they? You need to discuss growth, investment plans, new product lines, new service lines, eliminating costs, adding headcount. You need to talk about what is up and coming in the business so that the finance team is not being put in the dark, because they may have to warn you about something. So again, I guess 11, 12, and 13 would be very much the agendas for this meeting that you're creating in point 9. Okay. And again, like I said, initially it will be 1 to 2 hour meetings. Sometimes it will only be a 15-minute meeting because everything is going smoothly. Just depends on the month. But you got to get those calls booked in a recurring manner. And particularly if you need to report to HQ Finance should be in those meetings as well, so that everybody is on that one call or in that one meeting to be able to discuss. So I'm just going to reiterate, right? How steps to start your business with your China accountant. None of this is complicated. Create a budget, choose an accounting software system, implement and provide training, create your charts of accounts, decide whether you're going to create one set of books or two. Make sure that your accountant is aware of how to do accrual accounting. Again, something that can be tested in the interviews. You want to obtain weekly information, core data, bank balance, payables, receivables, maybe overseas incoming payments. There might be other data that you want, but this is what you should probably be getting from finance. Then you want to set up a meeting, again, something that's weekly in your calendar so that you can raise anything that might seem strange to you. You want to set a deadline for financial management reports. You want to create a recurring meeting to discuss those financial management reports. I would recommend that HQ joins those. You want your finance team to be able to reforecast and amend, and you want to review those. I suppose when you're reviewing those, you should then create next action plans to improve efficiencies, cost controlling, discussing problem points, and discussing growth. And you should be doing that from day one. Not waiting. Not spending money on a cheap service provider where you pay 2,000 RMB per month because all you are concerned about is producing the bare minimum that will satisfy the tax bureau. You've got to spend more time on this, and you've got to do it from day one. Oh, sorry, everybody. Yes. Go. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. So to finish off this presentation is one slide. You should be speaking to your accountant daily. Daily. Whether it's for a 5-minute conversation, whether it's for a 2-hour conversation. You should be speaking to them daily. And I cannot tell you the number of companies that go into China and maybe speak to their accountant, whether it's an outsourced provider or an in-house accountant, 5 times a year. That's it, if even. Terrible. And for many, I know that the pain point is because they feel like they don't speak the same technical language. But you can get educated on that. The accountant can educate you that you will then speak the right technical language. There should be no fear of that. I am able to educate you today because I have been working for 17 years with accountants who have taught me on how to create this type of program, on how to communicate with your accountant in China as a foreigner, as a foreign investor. And accountants are extremely valuable and vital for the business. So you should be speaking to them daily. That's the end of today's presentation. I would love to hear your feedback. This is the first time I've presented on this topic. So if you guys do have any tips or any questions, nobody's typed in anything so far, please let me know. I'd be extremely helpful if there would be other areas you would want me to discuss on, or that I can add to for the future webinars when I do this topic again. Please do give me your two cents. How you can work with me or how you can work with Woodburn, if you see the above listing, we do all of that. So how to start up the process, the daily objectives of the accountant, and also the growth. That's what we do. And that's how we help our clients. And maybe that's also why we're a little bit unique in the market, because we see that, yes, because we see, and because I've also learned, creating that foundation is vital, that the leaders and the managers that we communicate with have transparency and clarity, that we are proactive as a team to our clients. That's what we've now instigated and what we are trying to push for and what our ethos is at Woodburn. So if you remember those 3 slides I was explaining what an accountant should be doing, that's actually what we're doing. If you are interested in booking a strategy session with me, I will just add those into the chat box, but nobody's typed anything in the chat box. So if you do have questions, again, ask them away. You can type them in. I've just put in my contact details there. Now it's time for the Q&A, but nothing has popped in. I know there's only 2 of you, but if you do have any questions, remember there is no dumb question. Otherwise, just remember, we have 2 more sessions. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about how to recruit and employ your first hires in China. And on Friday, I'm going to be talking about how to choose the right people for your corporate management in China. Because again, those are 2 areas that have caused issues over the years, pain points for a lot of foreign investors. And obviously, we want to get that right from the beginning. So if you haven't registered for that, you can do that at woodburnglobal.com/events. There's still no questions that have popped in, so I think I will leave it there. And I hope to see you both again very soon. And for anybody who's watching this on replay, I hope that I will see you also at some of our live events. And I hope this presentation has helped. Take care and goodbye.